Hmm. We have a comment on the live feed. Let's see. I heard an urban legend that Charles once smashed idols on a holiness table in northern British Columbia. Is that true?
I did not smash idols on a holiness table in northern British Columbia.
Am I
However,
wrong?
what I did smash flower pots for an Easter morning service at Harlem Temple. I did do that.
Why?
Because it was a 3-point sermon based on Walter Brueggemann's comment that the resurrection was the ultimate prophetic criticism, shattering the numbness of people. And so I used that as an auditory emphasis.
Yeah.
Shattering the numbness.
Yeah, Brueggemann's awesome, and smashing flower pots just sounds like a good time. So, so I have a quote here I wanted to share and get your guys' feedback from it. All right. Sunday mornings are one of our weakest points as a movement. Perhaps it is time to operate in our strengths and allow the rest of the church to bless and benefit from us. Perhaps we tell our soldiers and officers to attend a local church on Sunday mornings. Then we serve lunch to the community, head out and do a creative and engaging open air meeting, and bring our new friends back with us for an evening of social work and or discipleship. We don't have to do it all by ourselves. I wouldn't go and shut down every holiness meeting around the world, but I would allow corps officers and divisional leaders to try this option if it worked for their context. What do you guys think about that? Pratik and Olivia, you can't answer.
Pratik can answer.
I guess Pratik can answer. Well, he can't disagree with you.
Hey, it's
Yes, he can.
your
That sort of reminds me of what Francis Chan is up to in San Francisco right now in the Tenderloin district. Since he left Simi Valley and went off to undisclosed parts of Asia for a period of time and then came back, he landed in San Francisco. And the place he considers his church home is a small Christian mission type place. And there are a few people there in the afternoon who worship. And then through the afternoon into the evening, they're working the apartment buildings up and down the Tenderloin district. And then they come back, wherever they have come back with them, they come back, have a little service. And that's their mission. That's their worship and mission expression.
I'm sorry. That's my son.
That's okay. So there are places in which, a more missional expression, if we can use that phrase without starting another forest fire, might be more appropriate. Where if you've been trying to raise a holiness meeting for 1 billion years and you're working with 6 people, nothing wrong with those 6 people, but I'd go to where the 60 are, as opposed to trying to beat that dead horse. Not that it's dead, but it could be mortally wounded.
Anyone else? Does that seem like a viable or reasonable thing to do? Like Charles says, is, if your core is, struggling to kind of put butts in the pews on a Sunday morning, is that something reasonable?
That was very Broadway, Matt, by the way. Very Broadway.
Broadway?
Yeah.
Well, I did my voiceovers this morning, so, I'm an actor now.
I mean, are we meant to be a church in the traditional sense? Is kind of like, it's a bigger topic, obviously, but if we're a mission, a movement, we can be a part of the body of Christ in more ways than just volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting. I do think we have to be careful about how much we do. You think in some other churches, the pastors are in charge of preaching on Sunday and discipling people. And there's all sorts of things. I believe that everything that we do within the Salvation Army should serve the purpose of winning souls for Christ. Mm-hmm. And we do it in such a broad format that sometimes I think when you're trying to do too many things all at once, some things may suffer. And so maybe that in some contexts, I can imagine that would be the case for a congregation on Sunday morning. But I grew up in a corps that had a pretty small congregation, and I've been to a corps with congregations as big as 100 people, which isn't overly large, but it's just an interesting thing to think about how we build something like that. I think it's much easier to attract people to a congregation that already has 50 or 60 people than to start something that has, starting something from the ground up with 5 or 6. It takes such strength from the people that you have to help with that discipleship and to really follow up with people and to encourage people to come, because it's not the easy thing. It's not the thing that's easy to do. Like in the music world, it's easy to get kids to join a music group where they see the older kids doing it already, and that it looks like something that's fun. It looks like something that's appealing. Sometimes it can be the same thing for church. If you walk into a congregation and there's 5 people, it doesn't look successful in a way, it can be deceptive, of course, because it could be quality worship with just that small group of people. But for people just starting out, people who are looking for a place to worship, for some that could be a detriment. I wonder if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. And I'm thinking back to like earlier in the conversation, somebody said that, when we were talking about ritual, somebody said, well, you can make a ritual. I mean, you can make an idol of anything, right? And I think that's perhaps true. And I wonder if is it possible to make Sunday mornings? That's a ritual. Is it possible to make an idol of Sunday mornings?
We're all nodding so much.
Okay, well.
I mean, is our mission just to have big Sunday morning services? I don't think that's profound enough, right? That's like, if our goal is just to fill a room on Sunday mornings, then.
I guess it's what that symbolizes, having people. It doesn't do the whole mission, right? It looks like it's happening. And you're hoping that if you have a bunch of people in the door, that those people are worshiping and drawing closer to God and having a quality worship experience.
Yeah, it's measurable.
Well, it's 6:45. This seems like it might be a good place to kind of ask you guys for. I mean, this is one of those conversations that we could talk about this for hours, right? We're not going to. Don't worry. But I want to ask you guys, do you guys have any last words of advice to leaders, to corps officers, to worship leaders on how they can improve worship at their corps? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking about, I've been soaking in everything that everyone's been saying. And I really think that we're at a very important crux at church, in church life, on how we do church with one another. And if we don't get it together, I think it's going to die. And it's going to die because I think, number one, when Jesus came, he didn't want a bunch of people to get together and start a religion after him. He was after relationship with us. So I think when our relationship factor loses out, and that's replaced by institutionalization or other things, fill in the blank, I think we're at a very, very dangerous place as a church, as a people, as pastors, as leaders, as worshipers, as children of God. And I think that's very important, whether you're in a corps, or whether in a Kroc Center, wherever you are, to get that very, very clear that Jesus has to be the center of what you are doing. Not only when you are stepping in with a group of people on a Sunday morning, but it has to be throughout the week, throughout your life.
Yeah.
And so Jesus is the answer to everything, I would say. I just feel I think it's very important, how I think there are a few different aspects of it, like how we could go about worship. But I think one of the important things is, what is Jesus saying to you? Because I believe Jesus is constantly giving new downloads to us as believers. So why are we not using the new downloads and very engrossed in using the old downloads that are growing stale day by day? So, just something to contemplate on is, what is Christ saying to you that is new? What new life is he breathing? And really maximize on what he's trying to say. But in order to do all of that, there has to be a constant way of listening to what he has to say.
That's right.
Knowing the voice of God. I rest my case.
My closing thought would be being spiritually prepared when you're going to lead worship is more important than being just having the slides and the music and the chords and all that. It's quality too, but quality of spirit is more important than quality of performance. Be prayed up.
Right. I think it all ties into this idea of desiring. What is it that you desire more than anything? And if our desire is confused with more of our soulish needs, then we can be limited in how we experience God. But if our focus is Jesus, then we can be innovative and use a wide variety of cultural forms to express.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well.
One sec. Sorry,
okay.
Before you end, I just wanted to just highlight on what Lisa was trying to say, because I think aesthetic is so important as well. And I think I'm talking about Sunday morning worship. I'm talking about worship when we meet with our people, whether it's on a weekday in a small group setting or on a Sunday morning setting. Like, it is important. Put work in it. Go beforehand. Like, set up whatever you need to set up. I think when people say like, "Oh, I don't have time for this or that," I think it's a cop-out. Like, we are coming together with the Holy One, and when we bring Jesus into the picture, we're at the cusp of revival. We're at the cusp of like things happening that are far beyond we can even think and imagine. So please do everything you can to create the best atmosphere. And I think it starts with your knees. It starts with your knees. So please do that. That's my humble request.
I have one other, and I think that, Scripture tells us that we were created to worship, but I think that we need to educate. We need to teach people how to worship, not just on Sunday mornings, but throughout the week.
Right.
And as we begin to teach scripturally what it means to worship, that it will impact our Sunday morning worship.
Yeah.
And along those same lines, even though we're worshiping corporately, the emphasis has to be on individual worship. And that will carry on outside of the corporate worship. So there's no place to hide, if you will. For each person, it's an individual experience, an individual encounter, an individual relationship with God.
You got to go after it. You got to go after them. You got to chase them.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be nice to have more songs with like we and us? That's like off topic, but I always want more songs that like are not just I and me. Since we're just singing it together, I'm like, we're in this together, people.
Or how about like, there's those songs like "We Raise Our Hands," and you look around, it's like nobody got their hands up, and you wonder, and it's like, well, you can be critical and be like, well, they're not doing it right, they're hypocrites. I'm like, well, the song just isn't that great, you know what I mean? It's a possibility.
Hey,
Go ahead, Pratik, chew me up.
Sorry, no. I think my voice is breaking. Chew me up. No. I was just thinking about. I think when Lisa said something, I was just thinking about that song where it says, "I can only imagine how like we would be when we when we see God, like when we enter heaven, when we see Him." Like that act of worship, like what will we do? Will we like fall on our knees? Will we dance? What is going to happen? And I was just thinking in the context of God is present with us every day. Like when we meet together, where there are 2 or 3 gathered in my name, I am there.
Yeah.
So why hold back? Like sweat in worship, like be free in worship. Like David, be undignified in worship. Like I would love to see, and I'm going to pray for this, like on Sunday morning, each salvationist, in order to be a salvationist, you have to be transformed by Christ. So each salvationist would be undignified in their worship. Don't matter what music you're playing, be undignified in your worship, because we're not worshiping just for each other. We're worshiping to the Lord Almighty.
That's
so
right.
Please be undignified.
It ain't worship unless you sweat.
I second that emotion.
I think we should leave it there. There's nowhere else to go after that. So I want to once again thank each of you for hanging out with us today and kind of sharing your experiences and wisdom on this topic. It's of great benefit to me personally and to leaders across the territory and whatnot. I don't know what to do with my notes, but we do have some upcoming on points. We do one of these a month. Next month is going to be on the topic of we're still working out like a title, but it's going to be sort of focusing on vocation, which is something I think we don't really attend to very much. And the following month, we're going to do one on the topic, or kind of like a lead preview where instructors from Lead are going to come in and tell us about what they're doing and give us some practical advice on topics they're teaching on. So I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You rock, Matt. You rock.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Have a good night.
Bye now.
Ciao.
Bye.